upgrade cycles. We've learned to live with them, love, and hate them all simultaneously. Most companies like Apple and Samsung upgrade their phones once yearly about the same time of year, and then there are some companies who are fun, like OnePlus, who literally upgrade their phones every 6 months. And while that's great for technological innovation and if you use OnePlus devices, this constant upgrade can leave the OnePlus consumer wondering whether they should upgrade to the T version or the new numerical version. So in this video, if you happen to own a OnePlus 5, I'm going to be helping you decide whether you should upgrade to the OnePlus 6. In doing so, we are going to go over the 5 categories of smartphones: design, display, battery life, camera, and performance, and identify all the key nuances between these two devices. First up, design. The obvious biggest difference is the glass back found on the OnePlus 6. I think it is a big step up in design and really elevates it and makes it feel a lot more expensive than it actually is. While the OnePlus 5 is still a premium feeling device, this one feels significantly more premium, more heavy, a lot more refined than its predecessor. Also, the new location of the mute toggle switch and the fingerprint sensor make handling the phone a lot nicer as well. They're small details, but they do make a big difference. Next, let's talk display, and obviously that's the biggest difference between these two devices. The OnePlus 5 features a 5.5-inch 16:9 1080p AMOLED display, while its successor, the OnePlus 6, features a 6.2-inch still 1080p AMOLED display with an aspect ratio of 19:9. So on paper, it might not seem that different, but trust me, when you use this device in person, you will never want to return to a standard aspect ratio device. The extra screen real estate makes a world of a difference, especially in conjunction with the screen gestures. You just feel you have so much more space, you can see a lot more, and you just feel like you're using a more modern, futuristic device. Also, what's great about these wider aspect ratio devices is watching videos. I didn't really realize this until I started watching YouTube videos and realized you could pinch in and zoom, and watching widescreen content is a real treat. So once again, once you use this wider aspect ratio display, you will never want to return to an older aspect ratio display. But despite the obvious differences in screen size and aspect ratio, the image quality between these devices is pretty much identical in terms of color, contrast, sharpness, etc. I really can't see a discernible difference with my naked eye. So if you're worried about image quality, really both have the same beautiful AMOLED displays. One is just significantly bigger. Also, really quick before we move on, I want to address the notch. Like I said in my review, some people hate it, some people love it. All I'm going to tell you is you're not going to notice it. That's how well OnePlus integrates it into its user experience. So love it or hate it, I would say you really won't notice it. Moving on to battery life, this is probably the least exciting comparison because I would say both devices share very similar battery life. Maybe I was able to get a few more minutes out of this device because it obviously has a smaller display with less screen resolution, but I really didn't notice a drop in battery life coming to this phone despite, like I said, its bigger display. So for the most part, I would say battery life is pretty much identical. I can get through an entire day with like 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, no problem. And with the incredible battery life on both these devices, you also get dash charging. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if you run out of power prematurely. You can just plug it in and have it right back up and running in no time. Next up, let's talk camera quality, and while I would say the OnePlus 6 is somewhat better, it isn't drastically different in terms of image quality. Where it does outperform the OnePlus 5, I would say, is in stability, low light, and variable frame rates. Low light looks better because there's probably some software and hardware improvements that I'm unaware of, but in conjunction with that, there is now OIS in the main shooter, which allows the device to lower the shutter speed, which allows a cleaner image to be captured. And speaking of OIS, that's where I derived stability from. I can now take Snapchat photos and other quick photos without having to worry about holding my phone perfectly still because, quite frankly, the EIS in this device just wasn't cutting it when I was using it. I was getting a little frustrated with this device because I could never just take a quick snap and have it perfectly stable. With this, I just pull out the phone and bam, I can take a shot without having to worry about my hand shaking. So I would say OIS makes a huge difference in terms of just everyday point and shoot photography. And I mentioned variable frame rates. There is now more slow motion options with the OnePlus 6. We now have 1080p at 240 FPS and 720p at 480 FPS. So I mean, it's not a huge thing for some people, but if you like slow motion, this is definitely the phone to upgrade to. Last but certainly not least, let's discuss performance between these two devices. And I will say, as of 2018, both remain blazingly fast devices among bloated, unoptimized smartphones. However, once again, the OnePlus 6 is going to have a slight edge here with the new Snapdragon 845, especially in multi-core tasks. So if you're rendering 4K video and doing crazy gaming, I would say this device is worth upgrading to, especially when you look at Geekbench scores. In regard to everyday tasks, I would say this phone is like a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds quicker than this phone in some cases, especially when opening up apps. But once you have apps open, I mean, like, animations and scrolling are pretty much the same on both devices, and I really wouldn't worry about this phone, deteriorating in performance anytime soon. Oxygen OS is still very well optimized for the OnePlus 5, but hey, if you want that extra speed bump, maybe the Snapdragon 845 is worth it to you. So yeah, that wraps things up. I hope this video helped you out. If you were wondering whether you should upgrade from your OnePlus 5 to the OnePlus 6, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like in the video, comment if you have any questions or suggestions about both these phones, and subscribe for more content like this. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.